Good evening, folks. My name's Randy Hatch. I want to welcome all of you out to the Red Mountain Tea Party tonight. I appreciate you sacrificing your time and your money at the door to be here with us. And I appreciate all of you sneaking in the back with me. We may have to do that from time to time if we see the Obama van in the front there. I do want to make a quick correction before I go on and before I forget. On this flyer, we do have the correct date at the top for Trevor Loudon next week. If you do hand that to your neighbor, though, they're probably going to notice at the bottom the date is different than at the top. So please tell them that the top date is the correct date and that the bottom date is wrong. And now that I've spent 5 minutes on that, we'll go ahead and move forward. Anyway, we appreciate all of you coming here. Our 5 principles are written out at the top of your program, and the very first one says that we stand for God. And I believe with all my heart that most of our founders did too, and that they were inspired of God to set up this country in the correct way. And the major problems that we are experiencing right now is because the country has gotten away from God and from the Constitution. And it's our job to pull people back to that path. Because of that, we pray every meeting, and we've asked Patty DeGroot if she would please come forward and offer the prayer for us. After the opening prayer, you can come on up, Patty. After the opening prayer, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we will sing the national anthem together. Patty? Yes, right there.
Let's pray together.
It's not me.
Not me either. Okay, let's pray. Father, we adore you for raising up the Tea Party movement. We praise you for the principles it is founded upon. We know you have protected the U.S. for 238 years now, since our country became a nation in 1776. You have put a hedge of protection around us and held our enemies at bay. That is miraculous. I confess, God, that I have not paid close enough attention to how far we have strayed from the Constitution our forefathers established for our country under your divine guidance. I need to be diligent daily, a watchman for our country. The price of freedom is not free. I confess, Father, that I did not do my research on our current Commander-in-Chief. He did not get my vote, but he is in office. Father, continue to open our eyes. We have been duped as a nation by this man. He does not appear to have America's best interests at heart. Show us how to proceed these last 2 years of his presidency. We realize we must rely solely on you for your guidance. We must not fail to follow your lead. Thank you, Father, that it is not too late for our country to turn back to the principles that has made us great. We have churches full of people in every town, county, and city in our nation. The sleeping giant must be woken up. We are your hands and feet, but we're standing still. We humbly ask for your forgiveness. We know better. We want to have a standard of excellence with which you will be pleased when all is said and done. Thank you for the many veterans in the audience who are willing to step up and do their duty to God and country. They are a shining reflection and a visible symbol of the land we love. I pray for heaven's blessing on our servicemen and women. Our speaker tonight, Brad McQueen, is a 5th grade teacher. He has courageously spoken out against Common Core and exposed it for what it really is. He will tell us about that. Governor Sarah Palin and Governor Rick Perry stood strong against federal coercion for money for each state if they voted to adopt the standards. Please bless their lives, protect them, advance their careers, keep them humble and open to your voice. Father, please open our eyes wide. We want to see clearly the agenda of our Commander-in-Chief. Help us in the November 4th elections to elect courageous representatives and senators who are committed to the fight for freedom from big government. We need secure borders and a constitutionally balanced budget. We will be careful to give you the honor, glory, and praise for extending your hand of mercy to us. We want to be a grateful people. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
If you would, follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance at this time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'll sing the national anthem. I like to cross my heart while we're singing. I guess, follow me. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed. Okay, sing it like you mean it. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Very good. Give yourself a hand, and all veterans remain standing for just a moment. Thank you for that. That was excellent. Let's give all these veterans a hand for their service. We don't have a country without you. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. I would like to also just recognize anybody who is new tonight. If you would, allow us to give you a round of applause. Please stand. First timers, anybody? There we go. Thank you for coming tonight. Okay. Anybody else here for the first time? Yeah, there. Tom's back. Tom and Helen Pittman are back from a long vacation. How many of you are just returning for the winter? Raise your hand. Okay, there we go. Thank you for coming back. It's good to see all of you. Appreciate that. Yes. If you would, those that are not currently on our email list, if you could raise your hand. Mary, our usher, has an email list. We keep you apprised of our speakers and any articles that, constitutional articles that we deem important. We send out once or twice a week. Would you mind receiving the email? We've got somebody. Yeah. And anyway, anybody else that's new, she'll be in the auditorium. Please just raise your hand. We'll get you signed up. We also, just one more time, want to remind you of Trevor Loudon coming from New Zealand next week. That's a long way to travel to come speak here, folks. So please invite your friends and neighbors. We've got to have a better showing than this, frankly. We really need to support these people that do this, like he and other great speakers. On the back of your programs, you have a copy of those who helped sponsor the meeting. Our first sponsor is Patriot Property Casualty, owned by good conservative Talmadge Pierce. Talmadge he was right here with his wife. Yeah. Anyway, they'll be outside in the hallway. If you'd like to schedule an appointment to have him review your insurance, he'll give you a free quote on what you currently have by way of your car your home, your mobile home, renter's insurance, anything, your shed, your jewelry, your personal property, he does it. The second sponsor is David Peterson Insurance. He specializes in Medicare supplements, and health insurance of all types. David is here tonight. David, could you stand? This is David Peterson. He and his son. Is your son still here? No. Yeah, okay, he's in the hallway there. He's studying in the hallway. That's a good place. He helps David with his business. They'll both be out in the hallway if you want to schedule a free appointment to have an overview of your Medicare supplements. The window opens up November 1st, October 15th, until December 1st. But you can review, 7th, but you can review the policies right now. You can set up and look at your options right now. So please get a hold of both of them. I feel strongly about this. I did this, and I do this occasionally. I did this week. I went to Walmart. I wanted corn with my dinner. I asked the gentleman working in produce if he knew where the corn was from. And he did not know where it was from, but he thought it was from here locally. I think that we ought to ask more often where these products are from. I think that we ought to deal with people in the U.S. of A. more than anywhere else. It's critical. If we're going to save jobs, we need to purchase and do business with those that do business in America, and with good conservatives. Why buy product from liberals, right? When you can do it with good conservatives. Okay, we have a short announcement tonight regarding the Prepper Fest coming up on October 25th and 26th out in Scottsdale. Tony Tangelo has been around for a number of years, and with his own money he sets up what's called the Prepper Fest. And he will explain all of that to us. Is Tony here? Tony. Natalie. Is Tony out there? It's his turn. Tony talks about preparedness, how important it is to be prepared both with produce, product, cash, clothing, you name it. And that's what one of these Prepper Fest goes into. So this is Tony Tangelo. Let's give him a hand for being here tonight.
Well, Randy, I want to thank you very much for allowing us here at your Arizona Patriot. It used to be the Red Mountain, it's now Arizona Patriots. And you've dropped the Tea Party name, right? Which a couple of the other groups have done, like Arizona Project. Because sometimes there's a stigma associated with those Tea Party words. Which, did any of you go to the David Michael Lynch thing on Saturday? Yeah, the greatest round of applause I heard was when someone mentioned that Ben Carson was running for president, and he happens to be African American, for those of you who don't know. And it was really great because there was about 20 African Americans sitting in the corner, and they could see that no, white America is in Tea Party is not racist. Because the biggest applause came out when he was announcing running for president. So I only have a few minutes. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Tony Tangelos. I do a couple of things with prepping. My dad got me into prepping. He went through the Great Depression, and he went to bed hungry every night and moved every week because his parents couldn't keep a roof over his head or food on the table. He was 7 years old and 29 when it hit. And he warned me that there would be a time in our country when what he went through would pale in comparison. He said it was going to come about when the debt would get to a point where it was unsustainable and our dollar would have issues, it would collapse, it would cause a breakdown in commerce. And folks, I believe God's put on my heart that we're near that. There's a lot of big biblical precedent for preparing. Noah prepared, Joseph in Egypt prepared. So what Prepper Fest Expo is all about is getting prepared, learning some survival skills, ham radio, we have food, freeze-dried food, solar power, dehydration for food, we have water purification. There's hundreds of exhibitors there. There's flyers with discount coupons in the lobby for those of you who didn't get them. I'm also going to leave some of our 60-page event programs, which we gave out at our last expo. I have some extras there that I'll leave to give you a little more idea what it's going to be like. So it's really an opportunity for you to get prepared. Also, we're going to have a lot of speakers there. Show of hands, who was here when Joel Skousen spoke in March? Okay, So he's going to be speaking there. We're flying him in on his private aircraft. He's coming in again. He was at our last expo. We have Sheriff Richard Mack, Shane Krauser, Alan Corwin. We have about 60 educators. We have 4 classrooms running all weekend. All the classes are free if you get into the expo. The expo's $10 a day. It's $18 for a weekend pass. You can go online and buy tickets. You can buy them at Westworld of Scottsdale. We're not in the tent. They have a brand new building. It's a 120,000 square foot building. And it's air conditioned. Of course, by the end of October, it should be pretty nice out there. And we're also having a special event that is really important. It's called the Constitutional County Project's Freedom Fest Rally. Now, this event is in the evening, and it's free. So the expo's daytime hours, it's $10 to get in. The Freedom Fest is free, and it's really here as a tool for you to tell your friends and neighbors and family that aren't getting it. People, we need to grow the constitutional rights movement. The liberals do a great job of growing their movements to promote, homosexuality and all the things that they promote. And we need to grow the constitutional rights movement. So this event is free. Tell your friends and family, you guys are the troops. You want to see change in the world, you have to be the change. Go home, call your friends and neighbors, give them these flyers, it's free. Come out that evening. Sheriff Mack will be speaking. Ammon Bundy's coming out. There's going to be a lot of good speakers. We've got constitutional rights musician Jordan Cage is going to be playing music there. It's free. So we really hope you can be there. Also, we're offering for the Arizona Patriots to have a free booth at our expo to recruit membership. We have a huge Tea Party pavilion. All the other guys are going to be there, David Francine and Vera and Ron Lutters. And we have this huge Tea Party pavilion. It's a great opportunity to network with the other Tea Partiers. We have a big map. And you guys have like the whole East Valley dominated because all the other Tea Parties are over in the West Valley and Northwest Valley. So anybody living east of like Tempe, we're going to send them to you guys to help grow your thing, and it's free. So I gave Randy a couple free passes. If you have volunteers that want to work your booth, we'll get them in for free. They don't have to pay. So thank you for your time. Just a couple other things. We have all sorts of pavilions there, a constitutional rights pavilion, a ham radio pavilion. We have a petting zoo for the kids. We have a farmer's market where you can get some produce. And it's just a really great opportunity to learn self-reliance and bond with other constitutional rights-oriented people. So I thank you for your time, and thank you, Randy, for allowing us.
You can find this literature right out in the hallway on a table with everything on it, the times, the dates, the cost, where to go. So see Tony afterward in the aisleway there as you go out. And a lot of those good speakers. You've heard of Shane Krauser, of course, and Sheriff Mack. All of these guys are going to be there speaking at one time or another. Remember that tonight's meeting will be recorded. If you would like a copy, please see our audio people, Trey or Gordon, out in the lobby after the meeting to order your copy. How many of you heard that Leon Panetta has his book out? So you heard that? Leon Panetta was our previous Secretary of Defense and CIA Director. And he says the following about President Obama. He said that he and everyone associated with the military high brass, the officers, knew and wanted for America to have a status of forces agreement in Iraq with 10 to 20,000 soldiers remaining. There was only one guy, and maybe his chief of staff, that didn't want it. Obama. And now they're making up some story that it wasn't going to work, it wouldn't have worked anyway. But Leon Panetta claims that all of the leaders in the military and himself argued hard for a status of forces agreement. He said that he wanted Obama to act when Syria crossed the red line. Remember that? And he did nothing. He thought that it made America look weak. He said, yes, he said that many, including himself, told Mr. Obama not to trade 5 terrorists for Sergeant Bergdahl. And yet, who did? President Obama. He said Obama hated to confront anybody about things, that he was bad with discussion, that he wanted things just done his way. He said that Obama had a tough time making tough decisions. He said that Obama never wanted to interact with our allies or other countries. And finally, he said that Obama never led with any passion at all, as though he wanted the job. We've been saying this for years, haven't we? All of this. This is nothing new to the Tea Party, is it? Nothing new at all. By the way, I don't have any trouble with that name, Tea Party. I just thought there might be broader appeal with the Arizona Patriot name. I don't have any trouble telling people I'm a Tea Party at all, whatsoever. It's a Tea Party that rescued this country from full demise in Obama in 2010. Anyway, all of that is familiar. What I would ask Leon Panetta, if he was here, I would ask him face to face, is if you knew all those things, as a top director of the CIA, as Secretary of Defense in charge of our nation's safety, why do you wait until you get out of office to say those things and reveal them to the American people? That's a coward's way out. That's a coward's way out. I'm glad that he said them, but he should have resigned under President Obama and let the American people know how unsafe they were here. Anyway, I'm glad that he finally wrote the book, but I thought he should have resigned long before. If he had that big of a division with his commander-in-chief, he should have stood up and told the American people they were unsafe with this commander-in-chief and the things that he was doing. Yeah, exactly. He wanted his job more than he wanted the country's security. Okay, well, we want to provide the rest of the time with, of course, at the end, time for questions and answers from the audience to our guest that has traveled up from Tucson, Mr. Brad McQueen. Could you come forward? Brad is a teacher. One of the experts in Common Core. We really appreciate you coming up, Brad, and thank you for being here. Is this good enough? Yeah. Okay.
Huh? Okay, sounds good. You can hear me okay? I've held one of these things. Let's see if my water stays here. There we go. First off, thank you for letting me come speak to your group. I really appreciate it. It was worth the drive. It was worth the drive. Just up front, I want to say I don't represent my school district or my school. I don't want to get involved with that. I completely represent my own viewpoints tonight, and I always have when I'm going against Common Core. I don't want to give them any ammunition at the Department of Education to try and get rid of me. After a FOIA request at the beginning of the summer, and I got to read a lot of emails that were passed around about me, they've been hard at work trying to get rid of me. So, good luck. Good luck. We got rid of John Huppenthal. Yeah! And Douglas got rid of John Huppenthal. A very rock-solid anti-Common Core candidate and an excellent spokesperson. And God willing, she'll go on to become the superintendent of public instruction and have a big bully pulpit to keep Doug Ducey on track, to make sure he follows through with saying he's against Common Core, that he has an actual plan to follow through, to pull it up, roots and all, not parts of it. Because Common Core is a child predator, as far as I'm concerned. You don't take the arm of a child predator off and say that's okay, or say you're against child predators, and then let part of them run roughshod in the classrooms in our state. Jan Brewer and John Huppenthal and Tom Horn before them let this predator into our state. We've got to get it out, roots and all. Now, just a little bit about me. I've been teaching 10 years now. I teach 5th grade, and it's a great age. They're still goofy enough that they that they'll laugh at all your stupid jokes, or at least my jokes. But they're smart enough, they're starting to think for themselves. They know that when we talk about current events, and we talk about current events a lot in my class, they know there's multiple viewpoints to everything that they are presented with in a textbook or in a newspaper article. And one thing Common Core is trying to do is present one side of an issue, one side of many of their favorite issues, whether it's in history, reimagining our history, or whether it's in science with regard to global warming. They want one side to be represented. But I've been teaching for 10 years, and I'm obviously not 30 years old, so I did things before. I'm pushing 50, so I did things before teaching. I graduated, I grew up in Maryland, and then went to the University of Florida, got my degree in political science, and was going to go to law school, but then I changed my mind at the last minute during the summer, moved over to London, England, and lived for 2 years and traveled. I wanted to see the world, and it was the best thing I ever did. Best thing. Not only because it got me out of our country so I could see it with renewed eyes. I could see what an exceptional country we are. I took so many things for granted, and I think a lot of us, we take things for granted. It's the air we breathe. It's the air we breathe, our exceptionalism. Except some people on the left actually choke on that air when you mention the exceptionalism of our country. Part of my travels, I spent a summer living in Israel. I lived on a kibbutz in Israel. And with current events in mind, it really solidified my just belief that we need to stand by Israel. Israel's doing the right thing. They're about 20 years ahead of where we are right now. And so it gave me that strong perspective of just the greatness of Israel and the beacon of hope it presents in the Middle East. But anyways, after I came back from being overseas, I didn't go back to law school. I actually went to New York City. And what else would I do? If I didn't go to law school, I went to acting school. If I'm going to be an actor, I might as well go to acting school. And I spent a couple of years in New York City doing some acting, little things in theater. Spent the rest of the time, about a decade in Los Angeles, and I got to work on film and television. Mostly behind the scenes, but again, that was such a great education. I got to see the celebrity culture. I got to see major celebrities and what they're really like versus the public image, the spin that you can put on anything if you have enough of the right people. So it really gave me that perspective, and that's I think something with conservatives are starting to learn is you got to be a part of that spin, that they've got the spin down. They got the spin and they've got the culture that they're shooting out down. But more and more conservatives are getting involved with that. You know, when you see Sarah Palin go on the Today Show and knock them all out, it's not that she's lessening her standards. She's taking part of that culture. She's taking it back and putting her conservative values in there. Okay, so then I came back after about a decade in Los Angeles. I wised up and I moved to Tucson. And I went back to school and through an alternative certification program, I became a teacher, an elementary school teacher. And I've been a teacher for the past 10 years. For the past 5 years, I've worked on our AIMS test, helping to create it, helping to analyze the results. And the great thing about Arizona that under the old standards before Common Core took over was that it was mandated that teachers create the tests. Teachers wrote the standards. Arizona owned the standards. Arizona could change the standards if it didn't match up with what was happening on the local level, or if it didn't match up with what was best for our kids, our diverse population. That's gone now. But at the time, up until Common Core took over, we could adjust the standards, the learning standards, as we had input, and we could change them. We also had our test where we had full control over our test and ownership of our test. That's gone away. We don't have that anymore. But I worked on the test for 5 years, and that gave me a good perspective on test creation. And I'll go into this later, but I worked a year ago in 2013. I was invited. I did I worked so much and I got to know all the people at the Department of Education that so love me now that they invited me to go to Chicago to work on the Common Core test, the PARC test. It's one of the Common Core national tests. And then once I got to see what was going on behind the scenes, I used to think they were just learning standards. New learning standards, let me go figure out what they are. I had a turnaround as soon as I got to talk to some of these people, and I did the research. And ever since I've been absolutely opposed to the Common Core standards, data suctioning systems, teacher evaluations, and test creation. It's more than just the standards or the learning standards. And the learning standards are just what kids learn at each grade level. It's what they learn, it's on paper. Parents should be able to read it, grandparents should be able to read it, teachers should be able to read those standards, and not have to have a Common Core decoder ring to figure out what they mean. I needed Common Core decoder ring. I've worked on the test. I still don't understand what they mean because they weren't written by teachers. They were written by ivory tower academics, and frankly, it sounded like a bunch of lawyers sprinkled in there too. No offense to lawyers, but don't bother education standards. Now, quickly, where did it come from and what is it? This Common Core thing? In a nutshell, I think what Common Core is, and I'll go more into detail about what it is in a second, but what Common Core is, it's a federal progressive takeover of our educational delivery system. It's been taken from us, out of our state, from the local level, the decision making, what is going to be taught in the classrooms, and it's been brought up to the federal level, to the Department of Education. That's what it is. In a word, it's un-American. In a word, it's evil.
Thank you.
And we need to start calling it what it is. If you take control of the education system, you take control of our kids' minds. You control, they're very impressionable. You can tell a kid something, as a teacher, they believe it. And if you take over our educational system, you're taking over our kids' mind. And the subtitle to my book is, it's The Cult of Common Core, but it's the Obama's final solution for your child's mind and our country's exceptionalism. Because if we lose our kids, we lose our exceptionalism. We are one generation away from it. We're in the middle of it, of losing not our exceptionalism, but losing the younger generation that don't know our exceptionalism yet. They're easily swayed. Another way of describing it is, very quickly, it's the Obamacare of education. That's a good thumbnail sketch way of thinking about it. Both Obamacare and Common Core, both of them were created in secret. No teachers were involved with Common Core. I was working at the Department of Education on testing over the summer in 2010, and they told me this thing was adopted by our state called Common Core. I asked them what that was, and they said, well, don't worry, it won't be implemented for a couple years. And hey, the elections are coming up in 2010. Obama might not be there. It might be a moot point. But it was created in secret, just like Obamacare, without input. It's a federal takeover of a chunk of our society. They're both data gathering machines. That's the component of Common Core people don't know about, or they don't focus on as much. That's the most insidious part of Common Core, is they have these NSA-like data tentacles suctioning data out of our schools about your grandkids and your kids from pre-K up through college and beyond. And it's not just about your kids, it's about you. You'd be amazed at what I find out about families as a teacher just by talking to kids. I can see a Common Core implementer type teacher, which is going to be the only type of teacher left once Common Core takes full effect. I can see them entering everything they know about your family. But they both are data suctioning machines. Both of them are opposed by the grassroots. Both of them are. Both Obamacare and Common Core are a collusion between big business and government. In the case of Obamacare, it's a collusion between the insurance companies and the government to gain power over us. And in the case of Common Core, it's a takeover a collusion between big business, big testing, big textbook companies, the Bill Gates of the world, the technology companies that are salivating over getting their kids information so they can develop products for free and sell it back to that multi-million-dollar market called K through 12. And they've already started doing it. Now, the other thing they both have in common is that they're both going to be defeated by the grassroots. That's the most important part. Now, I wrote the book Cult of Common Core, and purposefully I don't go into all the acronyms and all the groups. There are so many of them. And when I first found out about Common Core, I wanted to look for that book that just gave me the basics. Just tell me what it is, tell me the major stuff, so I can understand these articles. Even the people that were against Common Core, I couldn't understand what they're talking about, because they had all these acronyms. And they always had the acronyms in the first paragraph, and then when you're reading, you have to keep jumping back up to the top. Oh yeah, that's what it is. Oh, NGA, National Government Association. Oh yeah, CCSS. Okay. But midway through the article, you just want to drop it. Common Core is a lot like that. They've got a multitude of acronym groups. And so instead of keeping track of them all, every time I try and describe Common Core using all their acronyms, I decided I'd speak my own language. They can take their language, which is, I think, done intentionally, so it's hard to describe them and it's hard to fight them. It's like whack-a-mole. Every time you hit one, another acronym group pops up, created by government money so they can propagate and be used as a front group to spread their Common Core message. So I just call them all the Common Core. Whether it's a government official, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a Bill Gates, whether it's tech companies, I just call them all. You're the Common Core. And that's how you're going to be talked. That's how I'm going to refer to you. And sometimes I call them the Common Core beast. Sometimes I call them the Common Core machine. Anything works. So I'll do that tonight as well. But where did Common Core come from? Now it's been around in some form for decades. Most people know it was caffeinated. It was hyped up during the Johnson administration. This whole spirit of Common Core, which is to centralize education up at the federal level, to take it away from the states, to take it away from the families, to take it away from the parents and get it up into the federal level. It's been a progressive dream for years and decades. It started in hyper mode, like I said, with Johnson, but then it kept going. Skipped Reagan, but it kept going. Jimmy Carter creating the Department of Education, going up to Bill Clinton with Goals 2000, or whatever their names for their programs were that centralized and took control away from our education in the States. Whether it was George Bush 1, George Bush 2 with No Child Left Behind. They were all part of it because the progressives are equal opportunity progressives with their centralized worldview. The United States is just another country in the world mentality. They're in the Republican Party and they're in the Democrat Party. They're equal opportunity. So we've got to be careful when we hear these Republicans that say they're against Common Core, but they're not going to do anything about it. They want to get elected. But it's been around for a while. And then Obama is the last in the long line of progressives, I think. He's offering the final solution. Common Core finally cuts it all off. You see, the progressives' worldview as well. I guess in 2008, there were several things that came together once Obama was elected. There was the Great Recession. Then we had a far-left president get elected. Then we had a big group of people, a big group of progressives that have always been beating the drum, beating down our education system, belittling our decentralized nature of our education system. That decentralized nature is what makes our country great. We're the most diverse country in the world. The decentralized nature has created some of the most individual thinking, out-of-the-box thinking, innovative kids that became adults the world's ever known. They hate that system. They look towards the rest of the world. They look to the progressives look towards Finland, Shanghai, Singapore. Of course they do. That's all. Give them a plane ticket so they can go to their nirvana. Leave us alone. But they never leave us alone. They never sleep. But they looked at the international scores. There's a PISA test. It's another acronym, Eurocentric test that's given every couple of years. And they say American kids don't do as well as Finland, Singapore, and Shanghai on this test. Well, I say, hooray for China. Let them be the great test takers in the world. Our kids are too busy changing the world. Our kids grow up to be the adults that created the internet, that created those computers and the software, and probably the chairs that they were sitting on with government grants to their countries so that they could take those tests. Our kids grow up to be the adults that put a man on the moon. Our kids grow up to create the most impressive, technologically advanced, powerful militaries in the world that saves the world time and time again from tyrants created in those centralized, one-size-fits-all countries. So the progressives on both sides of the aisle have been beating down our system. Don't get me wrong, our system can always be improved. We're always looking. I mean, that's just American. We always are aspiring to something better. We never settle. We always know we can do better. So the progressives looked at our school systems. They looked at the rest of the world and found our kids lacking, of course. Along comes 2008 with a ultra-left president, and then the Great Recession. All the departments of education around the country were hemorrhaging. They didn't have money. There was threats of teacher layoffs. There was cuts to be, all the fear-mongering that was going on. God forbid they should maybe look at spending their money a little smarter and getting some of the unions out of the process. And maybe actually the recession was actually good for education in some ways because it got rid of a lot of the fat. I know down in Tucson it did. But with that Great Recession, the governors were searching for a way out. They needed money. And in response, of course, the Obama administration came with a big bag of money, billions of dollars in money. And they never give it to you for free. So in 2008, they gave stimulus money for education. I won't go into the acronyms, Race to the Top, whatever they're called. But they handed a big bag of money to the governors. And as the governors were reaching out for that money like they normally do, and Jan Brewer was right up front, kicking people out of the way, spitting scorpions because she ate them for breakfast. She was grabbing for that money. They pulled the money back and they said, well, no, you've got to adopt this. And they held out this hideous, scabbed, pus-filled creature called Common Core. For this money, you need to adopt this. You need to set it free in your state. And all the governors did, except Sarah Palin of Alaska said no. Rick Perry of Texas said no. The governors of Nebraska and Virginia said no. We'll keep our sovereignty. You keep your Common Core and you keep your money. But unfortunately, all the rest took the money. And they quietly in 2010, it's been around a long time. It's grown tentacles in our school systems. It's been around since Obamacare has been around. But we were so busy arguing about Obamacare, trying to keep our houses, trying to keep our jobs. They snuck this in, not even going to the legislature. They used the Department of the State Board of Education to push this in on us. They didn't even, because if they had to have gone for a vote, we would have had to have talked about it. And they didn't want that. So here's some parts of the Common Core. The states had to agree to do four things. Basically, they had to change their whole education system, and they had to get rid of all their standards, all of them. Standards that have been around for decades and shown results, thrown out the window overnight. Massachusetts has some of the best language arts standards, English and writing standards in the country. They threw them out the window because their governor, Deval Patrick, is a good buddy of Obama. He threw them out the window and adopted Common Core. Once Massachusetts went, everyone else started falling in line with it as well. But we, in Jan Brewer, through all of our work and all of our learning standards out the window, the first thing they had to do was adopt national standards, Common Core standards, which hadn't been written yet. They agreed to adopt standards that weren't even written yet. Weren't even written. They said, we'll do it, just give us the money. And those standards are copyrighted. Something about those standards, and some of you, forgive me if I'm repeating the stuff that you probably already know. but it's worth repeating. These standards were not written by educators. They were written by testing companies. There wasn't a single kindergarten through 12th grade teacher involved. They were written in secret. They were written by a private company that owns the copyright to the standards. Our standards in Arizona, I don't care what Jan Brewer wants to rename them, they're Arizona's Common Core standards. They are 85% owned and copyrighted by a private group called the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers in Washington, D.C. We can't change a period in those standards. Now, they did give us 15% of the standards that we could add, that, to sort of maybe have some Arizona flavor thrown in there. But we used to have 100% ownership, 100% control over our standards. We have 15% input now. Since when is 15% better than 100%? Only in Common Core math. Only in Common Core math. Now, so we had to adopt the standards that hadn't been written yet, and we had to join with other states to create a national Common Core test. There were 2 groups created by federal money. The government paid for it. Actually, you paid for it. I think the government paid for it. When did they ever pay for it? The government took your taxpayer dollars from Arizona, went up to the Department of Education, like the Education Department does, the money laundering system there, and they gave it back to you and made you do things with it. They created, they had to create band together with other states to create a Common Core test to assess the not yet written standard yet. There were 2 groups. PARC was one of them. It's an acronym. Smarter Balance, SBAC. Don't worry about the acronym. Just know there's 2 groups. We're part of the PARC group of states, or we used to be. And we had to become part of those groups and create a test. So we had to adopt national standards, band with other states to create a national test, and the most insidious part of Common Core, we had to put NSA-like data suctioning systems in our schools. When I talk to parents about this, off campus, of course, to that camera, when I talk to parents and when I talk to grandparents about these data suctioning systems, they are livid. Their eyes glass over when we talk about learning standards, testing, okay, whatever. But then when I say your kids' information is being suctioned, and it's they really get their attention because they all know about the NSA tracking. They know about the IRS scandals where they're using data against people when they don't follow along with their political doctrines. But they had to put data suctioning systems in the schools. They're called statewide longitudinal data systems. Longitudinal data systems is what they're called. It's like a line of longitude. It's the best way I can describe it. It goes up and down. Here's your kid or grandkid right here. Here's the Department of Education. There's a line going right up. If you think about a river, that goes north, there's all these streams of data being fed. Every grade level, they feed more data to that stream, testing information, test scores, evaluations, behavior problems, absenteeism. In some cases, they've been talking about blood type, mental health, counseling. All that goes into their little data stream going right up to the federal government. Anywhere along there, you can poke into that data stream and get all the information about your kids. And the thing is, you'll never know they do it because they changed the education privacy regulations. President Obama and his Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan, changed the way they were enforcing the law. They didn't change the law through executive order. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Through executive order, they changed the way they were going to implement the education privacy laws, the FERPA laws. No longer do you have to be told if your kid's information has been tapped into. They don't need your permission, and they don't need to tell you it's been done. Most schools, it used to be if they wanted to put your kid's picture on the website, they have to get permission for that. Yet they can get all this other information without you knowing about it. And if you doubt me, we just had these field tests. Did anyone hear about field tests going on in Arizona? A couple of people might. We had these field tests. These private companies came in. Park came in, the test, the Common Core testing company. Since we're getting rid of Ames, they came into the state, and they chose a bunch of schools. They chose 1 million kids countrywide, and they gave them. They basically test marketed their private test on our kids. Now all the schools acted like it was just part of the testing regimen for the year. Ames, there was this Park field test. Keep moving, don't think about it. Parents weren't asked for their permission for that. And parents who did ask to be opted out were hassled if they didn't want their kids to take those tests. If parents asked, what information did you take from my kid? They weren't going to get it. We still don't know what they got from the kids, because there were surveys that popped up where during questions, they would pop up and ask questions to the kids evidently. We don't know what they asked. We can't see the test. We don't know where they took the information. But they took all this information and they worked on it over the summer, because I've seen the emails of the Department of Education, which was in collusion with them. And they're going to make their test better, and they're going to sell it back to Arizona most likely in the next couple of weeks. You might see a Park test all of a sudden pop up. And we have people in the Department of Education that work on the taxpayer dollar, but they also work for Park. We have Park lead, we have Common Core people in our state, our Department of Education who we pay. So there's this mixing of people we elect to protect our kids, and then these data predators that have been let in the gate. They were let in our schools, they pimped our kids out and gave them this information. Unapologetically. So, adopt the national standards. They had to become part of a test creation group. They had to put these NSA-like suctioning systems in. And one of the last things is they had to, the states had to connect student information and test results to the teachers' evaluations. Now, a lot of people might think, well, good, keep those teachers on, keep those teachers on top of things. You can see how they're doing. And that's kind of the rationale they use on the surface. But underneath is, it's a good way to keep teachers in compliance. If your kid in your classroom isn't doing well on that section of the test that deals with Second Amendment, this, that, or the other, if they're answering the wrong way, well, we can go into that data stream. It's what all your lesson plans are now online. All of our grades are online. All of our evaluations are online. All the kids' information, they can easily hook it up to what lesson we missed and what are you doing in that classroom. It is a compliance arm to keep teachers in line. Any rogue teacher that wants to teach their kids how to speak and think for themselves will be taken care of. They will not be allowed to get away with it. Common Core's goal isn't, they don't want good teachers, because Common Core is not about education. It never has been. Obamacare isn't about health care. The EPA coming into our state isn't about pollution. It's about control. And those evaluations also are tied to teacher pay. So you better believe those teachers that haven't quit already and that are thinking about quitting, and there's a lot of teachers that are retiring early because they don't want to deal with this. My coworker just retired after 35 years of teaching. She wanted to get up to 40, but this was the death knell for her. It takes away creativity. Good teachers are going to leave or be shut out. What's going to be left are bureaucrats teaching your kids and your grandkids. You're going to have education implementers, not teachers. But that's the goal. That's the goal. Now, my experience with Common Core, how long have I been talking? Am I really going on way too long? I tend to, I bring all these notes up here like I'm going to forget something, and then I ignore them and I babble on about anything. So it makes me feel good to have it right there. Let me get to my experience with Common Core. It'll give a little more credibility to what I'm saying. I didn't do research and make some conclusions. I dealt with these people directly. Like I said, I heard about Common Core in 2010. They said, don't worry. Now we're worried. In 2013, about a year and a half ago, I was asked to go be one of 5 people to work on the Park test. I was looking at 5th grade writing rubrics, and it's not really important. I was looking at their essays. They were doing tests on the part test, and they asked teachers to come in like me to review some parts of the test. And at this time, I didn't have an opinion about Common Core. I just thought they were learning standards. I hadn't done any research yet. Teachers were busy. We were just like keeping ahead of the wave, like most people. So I went and I said, great, I'll go. I want to see what this test looks like. I want to see what this Common Core thing actually looks like, and maybe I can change the way I teach in class. Maybe it's just that sort of thing. Nothing could be further from the truth. I went to Chicago, and I got off that plane and went into the meeting asking all these questions. Well, what's the Common Core all about? Where did they come from? Where are these standards? Who wrote these standards? Right away, they made it clear. They shut me down and said, well, you're not here to ask questions about Common Core. There's a website. If you want to find out the history of Common Core, what it's all about, go there. You're here to look at some of these writing samples. So I learned right away to shut my mouth, and right away, I knew something was wrong. I came from Arizona, where we create our test. No, we have input on the test. With Common Core, this part test, I was just being used, and the other teachers that were there were being used so they could check the box and say, oh, we brought teachers in. They didn't really care what we thought. And it was so antithetical to what we do in Arizona. That's gone now. But anyways, in response to one of the questions, I had questions about one of the kids' writing samples that I was looking at. They were all failing the writing. They were all failing the writing according to these scoring rubrics. I asked the question of one of my Common Core handlers. I call them Common Core handlers. I asked them a question about the writing sample, and she turned to me in a moment of honesty and said, we don't care what the kids in your classroom think. We don't care about their opinion. If they write about their opinion, if they write what they think, they're going to fail this test. We want them to quote what the experts we present them with on the test are telling them in their writing. And it was so normal for them. For me, it was like a kick in the stomach. I thought, that is exactly the opposite of what we do in school. I give a kid a topic to research or to write about or to talk about. They research all different sides of the argument, or we talk about all different sides of the argument. They take a stand. They support it with what they read. She told me that's not the Common Core way. That's not, they call it critical thinking, and it's not. It's our education system is in critical care. They said that's not the Common Core way. We want them to repeat back what the experts are saying on the test. And I said, it's not going to happen in the classroom. We just don't teach that way. And she said, well, when the tests come out, we expect that the teachers will imitate what's on the test and teach it in the classrooms. And this is before I knew about all the data suctioning systems. I didn't know about Common Core. I didn't know about the data suction. I didn't know about the teacher evaluations being hooked up with the test scores. So you better believe it. There are going to be teachers that teach a kid, when they read about man-caused global warming in their science books, you better repeat back what that expert told you. And there's a big push to make these online textbooks now. It's a big push. Sounds great, but they can be changed at will. From Common Core Central, if you have an online textbook, you open your computer, well, a whole section on global warming can change overnight depending on who's in the White House. That's your kid's mind. That's your kid. And if a teacher tries to dare, I always give both sides of that argument, or 10 sides of that argument. And kids are relieved to hear the other side. That's going to go out the window. But I was told, anyway, so that was a kick in the stomach. So for me, I knew something was very wrong. Very wrong. And so I went back after I left Chicago. I spent the summer, I still worked on testing at the Department of Education. Ames was still there, I was busy. I did all this research. I looked into, there was this rising anti-Common Core movement. I found out all this stuff I talked about with you tonight. And I actually went back one more time. I still doubted what my research told me, because no one else was talking about it, except for maybe Michelle Malkin was talking about it. God bless her. She's been there all along on a national level. Glenn Beck came on too. Yeah, good. So, and again, I was looking for that book. Where's that book that can just give me the overview so I don't have to do all this research? I'm pretty lazy. So, Anyways, I went back again, and again, I went through the same sort of motions, and there were more teachers that I talked to, and it was confirmed that yes, the research is right, and it really solidified that this is not something I want to be a part of in my classroom. I've got to fight against it. But I didn't quite know how to fight against it. I kind of held this information for a couple months, and then this sort of collusion of events in my life started happening. I started hearing moms speaking out. Moms are the first ones. You guys, moms and grandmas, know when something's wrong with your kids. You can sense it before you even know it. Sarah Palin calls them the mama grizzlies, and she's so right. They can sniff out a problem with their kids a mile away. They knew something was getting in between them and their kids in the classroom. They couldn't put their finger on it, but they were getting in the faces of governors and school boards, and I was watching them across the country, and they did it in Tucson as well. And then in return, these education technocrats and governors and others belittled them, called them crazy, called them white suburban moms who found out their kids weren't as bright as they thought they were, and their schools weren't as brilliant as they thought they were. That's Arnie Duncan. That's the Secretary of Education said that to them. They tried to make them look crazy. They were asking the same questions I was asking. And the facts they brought out that they were being told they were crazy about, they were correct. They were correct with their facts. So when I saw these parents, these moms rising up, and one of the last things that happened too is I heard people saying how teachers overwhelmingly supported the Common Core. And they're on the front lines. They're implementing these Common Core standards. They support it. Well, no teacher's going to speak out against a governor and a superintendent of instruction who is for Common Core. You're going to raise your head up and say, I oppose it. So I heard all this going on, and kind of the final click for me was when I read, speaking of going back, I read Miracles and Massacres. If anyone's read that, it's an incredibly good book. The theme that runs through that book is there comes a time when you have to stand for what's right. It can be a small thing, it can be a big thing. You have to leave the consequences up to God. If you're called, if you feel like you need to do something, you need to do it. And leave the consequences up to God. And so I said, okay, God, here we go. And I wrote an op-ed in the paper, the Arizona Daily Independent, expressing my opposition to Common Core with my name attached and why I was against it. Other papers picked it up. I was called by a radio station in Tucson. I did an on-air interview about my opposition to Common Core. 3 days later, the Department of Education called me in my classroom. The Director of Park Assessments for all of Arizona, Sarah Gardner, called me in my classroom and said, could you give me a call? I have some questions for you. So I called back, and I thought she was going to tell me how wrong I was, because I know Sarah. I've worked at the Department of Education. She was on the committees with me until she got promoted up. She called me not to tell me how wrong I was, but to grill me about, do you know what the Common Core standards are? What's your problem with these standards? Are you implementing these standards in your classroom? And I thought to myself, well, Sarah, you sent me to Chicago twice. You thought I knew the standards so well. And then when she started going into what I was doing in the classroom, I knew she was setting me up. If I said, no, I'm not those stupid standards, first off, the standards are so low in our district, we cover those and then some. The standards are so dumbed down, they're covered. But if I had said, no, I don't, in a moment of anger said, no, I'm not going to put those things in my classroom, I would have been fired on the spot. And that's what she was going for. Luckily, I had a witness in the room. She was on speakerphone. And that may come around to haunt them very soon. But we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. After that, fortuitously, but God made it happen. A couple days later after that, John Huppenthal comes down to Tucson. Those mothers that were speaking out in the amphitheater school district invited him down to speak about Common Core. And I walked over, they invited me, I didn't know about it, they found out through the radio show. I walked over to the meeting thinking I was just going to, I didn't know John Huppenthal, now I know John Huppenthal. But at the time, I thought, this guy just doesn't know what's going on at his Department of Education. If he only knew about Common Core, well, he doesn't know what's going on at his Department of Education because he's too busy blogging at night, pretending to be somebody else. But that aside, I was going to just go ask him, basically report one of his workers. Why is this person calling me in my classroom? This is my First Amendment right to speak out against something I disagree with. I'm not representing my school district. I'm representing myself as an American. You can't touch that. And so I went in with that mindset. Well, he was there for 3 hours, and he kept spouting the Common Core lies, and I just kept going back. We kept going back and forth. He didn't have the facts, and when he did, he twisted them. Anyways, afterwards, I still walked up and shook his hand and said, I hope you're going to talk to this person at your Department of Education. And he said he had no idea who she was. The top person, Common Core person in his Department of Education, he has no idea who she is. He said that in front of the group and to me personally. I knew right then that what we all know now, that he's a big fat liar. He's a liar, and I knew right then too, I had a big fat target on my back. I just talked to the chief educator in my state. My boss's boss, who's pro-Common Core, had a throwdown with him, and now he knows who I am. I went back within a couple days. I said, all right, God, you gave me that I need to get this information down. I started typing, and in 3 weeks, I wrote the Common Core, the Cult of Common Core. I wanted to get it all down in one place so that I could hand it to anyone, and everything I know about Common Core, I could just hand it to somebody. It's like 75 pages long, so they can get a grounding in it. After that, I've written close to 40 articles that have been published in the Arizona Daily Independent, picked up by the Daily Caller. The Blaze has published some stuff, and also the Education Action Group has published. That's the organization that Kyle Olson runs. He co-wrote Conform with Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck's Anti-Common Core book. And my book was beating Glenn Beck's book. The first 2 weeks his was out online. Then his publicity machine kicked in and left me in the dust. But I have a screenshot of each of the days. So, anyways, and later on I found out through a FOIA request, because I also wanted to find out, I wanted to find out if John Huppenthal ordered that call in my classroom. So I had the Arizona Daily Independent ordered a FOIA request, and I named all the people I wanted their emails. And I found out I never got a direct connection with them. They're very slick with all the emails. But I did find a lot of other stuff that I wrote about over the summer, about corruption with Park, about security breaches with the Common Core test, about this whole group that was being assembled to come after me, to write op-eds against me. They even wrote one of the op-eds for the person who eventually published it. They blackballed me from every single job that I got over the summer. So that I always worked every summer to supplement my income, and I liked writing tests. They blackballed me. They banned me from all the tests in the summer, and that's all in the emails. That will have repercussions too. So in conclusion, and I'm sorry I'm taking a long time. Yeah. In conclusion though, in all seriousness, Common Core, all its supporters, all its big money, you can already start to feel their foundations crumble. There's like, every time someone learns about Common Core, they hate it. They hate it. And like this little light goes on somewhere in the country every time somebody learns the truth. And the light's getting brighter, and the cockroaches are running. And there's this, even since I published my book, I just published it in March of this year, I've seen an exponential power behind this anti-Common Core wave. The other side has a lot of money, and they've spent a lot of money, and they're still spending a lot of money. But our side has the passion for our Constitution. Our side has a passion to protect our kids. They have nothing. And the thing is, I'll bet on our Constitution and the goodness of the American people any day over these people, these Common Core people. It's very American. It's a very American thing to stand up when a tyrant or a tyranny raises its head. America always stands up. We do. It's in our DNA. We don't have a choice. When we find out the truth eventually, we stand up to it. So they might have the money, but we're going to defeat it. Just like that little ragtag group of patriots defeated the greatest empire on the planet at the time in the War for Independence, we'll defeat Common Core. Thank you. So much for my notes.
Great. Okay, let's take a few questions from it. We'll start with this young lady. Yes.
I was watching last year, we were in the second grade class, we were doing a number line, back,
Yeah.
and the kids know the answers, they go, why do we have to use number line? No, we can just put it on paper, like we used to do. And then so the teachers didn't have to use number line, and it was subtracting, but you're actually adding.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah, and one little boy goes, well, this is a subtraction problem, why are we adding? And he goes, well, that's just the way it is.
It's more rigorous, I'll
That's
say.
so stupid. And then also, they make it so they want you to read more informational text and less fiction. So there's like 90% informational text, and so you read down the whole media center now with informational text. But what informational text is all liberal. Like I said, global warming, all this.
It's not the great literature that aspires you to be greater than, yeah.
The fiction is where you get creative, where you think, you see man against nature, and all the, and how the problems resolve. Fiction is what who's reading what you are, imagine. But that's wrong.
And the AP history has just been
Let me do this. Let me, what we do is we repeat it. We have a lot of people that can't hear. Let me repeat a little bit of what she said. We're having an earthquake here, aren't we? All right, Gordon, get us working. She said that she's an instructionalist, and the, what grade? Second grade. The students already knew the answers to the math because the Common Core is so dumbed down from what they had before. They already knew the answers. And she also talked about how much informational reading that is done now with Common Core as opposed to fictional type stuff like, I guess, what, Shakespeare and cultural stuff. So go ahead.
What I was going to say is that's exactly right. All of it's informational, and that's kind of a ruse too, because what's informational? I mean, it can be anything. Teachers don't know what that means. They don't. We've had trainings. They don't know what that means. They're coming up with stuff, and what they're doing now is by 12th grade, I think it's like 90%. It's really high informational. So what's happening is they're requiring that their informational reading their informational writing and reading has to take place in social studies and science. So that's their backdoor way of controlling social studies and science. That's their real goal. Right now, Common Core only covers math, reading and writing, the skills, because they tried doing it back in the 90s. They tried taking over the history standards, and they were so poisoned by the far left reimagining oppressive history that they were teaching our kids, that they want to teach our kids, that it was gotten rid of. Common Core, make no doubt, they want to go after our kids, our country's history. They want to reimagine it, and they've already done it. They've already done it with the advanced placement history in high school. They've already taken that over. They've rewritten the standards, and they've gotten rid of all the founding fathers except for brief mentions. It's all about the oppression of our country, our imperialism. It's about social justice. They've gutted the exceptional nature of our history. And these are the brightest kids. If they don't repeat that back, what their experts are telling them, they're going to fail that AP history test. They won't get college credit.
And we'll end up with no country.
Yep.
Because these people won't know what to believe. These kids, grandkids, they won't know what to believe about.
And that affects charter schools, public schools, private schools, homeschoolers, whose kids are going to college. They've also gained control of the college admissions.
Randy, that's called
Let's go
revisionism.
right.
Randy, that's called revisionism. I've been fighting
Yes.
it for 18 years.
Yes. Okay, let's take one more from this side. Can you stand, please? If you can stand when you state your question, it's best so I can hear, he can hear, but he can hear if possible. In the data gathering process, has that already started? And what kind of data are the teachers getting right now from the kids?
Well, that's the thing is they sell it as, well, we're gathering data so teachers can see what their kids know and don't know, and they can tailor their instruction. Now that, I can see that. If I was the only one looking at it, and the parents were the only ones looking at it, and anyone needs to know. No, their data, whatever it isn't just learning stuff. It's, some studies say there's over 400 possible points that they're gathering on kids, including blood type, DNA, family histories, mental health evaluations, guns in the house. They've had this whole study done by the Department of Education called Grit, Tenacity, and Perseverance. It's a study that they did. They go through, and it's quoted in my book, it's sourced in my book, but they go through all the possible wonderful things they can get from their kids, including wristbands that measure mood, and they're already in the schools right now, but they're using it for weight loss or something. They can gather if a kid's stressed out by using facial recognition technology, possibly. If a kid's taking too long on his iPad, reading his textbook, answering a question about the Second Amendment, a little survey can pop up. What's taking so long? Do you have guns in the house? That's attached to your kid. We don't know all the data yet and what they're doing with it. They don't have to tell you as a parent. See, you're being taken out of the equation. You are taken out of the equation without knowing it. They changed the FERPA regulations, so you can't even ask what they're taking. The final nail in Arizona, they just awarded the contract for the longitudinal data system this summer. It's called the SIS systems. I can't keep up with all the acronyms. It's the longitudinal data system. They like to hide in names, but I think it's the student information systems. That's the gathering piece. And then they all signed, because that was paid for by federal money, stimulus money. And I looked at the contracts. We got several $1 million or more, actually more than that, to create these data suctioning systems. We got grants. In the grants it says you will follow all regulations as prescribed by the Department of Education, which includes giving us the data, because our regulations say we can take it.
Brad, I understand that Pearson Books played a huge role in this, and the book companies. Can you speak to that a little bit? What part of the creation and what part of the back end will the book companies have in this?
Well, they're also ancestors. It's hard to know who's who with Common Core. When I went to these meetings, I didn't know who was the Department of Education representative, because they had Department of Education representatives from around the country. There was a woman in my room that worked for the Department of Education for some Northeast state, but then she also worked for Park, two competing groups. One group is after your kid because, after their data and to make a profit, that's a company. Okay, I get that. But the other half of her is the Department of Education that's supposed to prevent that from happening. They answer to us. So with the textbook companies too, they were there. I saw McGraw-Hill at a test creation, creating, sitting in on some of these tests. Pearson's everywhere. Pearson's an international group. Pearson's a testing group, a textbook group. They're everything. They actually are highly involved with the PARC test. They bid on our test. We haven't even gotten our test yet. Ames test was stopped last spring. We're supposed to get a new Common Core test that will be given in, say, end of February. We don't even have our test yet.
Let me stop you for a minute, because this is very important. Did you hear what he just said? Pearson's was very involved in the creation of the testing. Pearson's is an international book company, probably the largest.
We're an education conglomerate. They have everything.
And so our children are not learning American standards. They're learning Indian and China and Russian standards. I mean, this was a conglomerate type of a test that was put together. Kathy, did you have a question?
They are using names. The high school make up names. It's names.
Yeah, that's for the graduating class.
Right, but they're going to use names for 2 more years.
Well, I'm talking about the
She said they're going to use Ames for 2 more years.
No, well, they're going to use Ames for, and you are correct, they stopped Ames for all the other grades. they're going to continue with AIM Science in 4th and 8th grade, just to test science, because there's no science Common Core standards yet. And the kids who are going to graduate, that need to pass the AIMS to graduate from high school, they're going to still get 2 more years in order to pass it. But the rest of the kids, the whole testing scenario has been removed. AIMS, they're not taking AIMS in reading, writing, math, any of the other grade levels. Only the high schoolers that are needing it to graduate, they'll continue on.
Yes. You get the hand out in the aisle.
There's a requirement in the Affordable Care Act to implement clinics within the school system itself, within individual schools. Somewhere on page 1150, I read it. But it says very specifically that the government intends to implement school clinics through the Affordable Care Act to dovetail into the educational process. Have you had any visibility to this in Arizona at this point?
He says that Obamacare mandates that there be clinics, health clinics inside each school that interfaces with
That's right.
with Common Core. Okay, that's what he read it. You read it in Obamacare. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I do know that Arnie Duncan has repeatedly said he wants schools to be open 7 days a week, almost 24 hours, 24 hours a day, so that they could be a center of the community for kids who don't have parents, so that the government could be their parents and feed them and teach them off school hours. And in conjunction with the health clinics, I haven't seen it at my school, I'm in one school, but there is a heavy presence, I've been reading about, of Planned Parenthood in wanting to get involved with sex education.
Can you imagine how scary that is, folks? Health clinics inside schools with the power through Obamacare, the law of the land, to take care of your children? Yes.
And gather all the data and keep it.
She's asking about his book that he wrote and any other articles that we might be able to get online or get a hold of.
Okay, my book is The Cult of Common Core. I just bought maybe 15 copies tonight, but it's on Amazon. It's in the ebook form, so you can download it, or you can order the book itself, and it's a pretty quick process. And it's it's a quick read, 75 pages long. I have in the back of that every assertion I make. I don't just make an assertion, I tell where I got it, and usually it's from an original source, a contract, a speech. And in the back also I list a lot of those people I gather from. If I've cited organizations or articles, it's in the back. But a good one is Truth, I can't remember these names now. Truth in American Education, I think, is an incredibly good website. Arizonans Against Common Core is a good website. Michelle Malkin is always good. Glenn Beck on the Blaze. Breitbart's incredible. Breitbart's on top of everything. If you're on Facebook, there's 2 great, really good, or 3 in Arizona. The Stop Common Core Arizona webpage. There's the Mojave Stop Common Core site. It's worth just, if you're not on Facebook, it's worth getting a fake, you can do a fake email if you don't want to become involved with it, just so you can read their messages, because they gather all these great articles from around the country and they put them on the website. And you can hook up with, every state has several groups on Facebook. You can just go click on them and connect them to you. And that's how I do it. I go around the country in every state and see what's going on around the country.
There are also very good videos about Common Core on YouTube. He's in 1 or 2 of those. You're on YouTube, you know that? Yeah.
What did I do?
I pulled you up anyway. You can also Google his name, and up will come those memos and some of the articles that he has written. Some interesting names that the Department of Education called him. It's really interesting in the very back there.
Yeah. Well, I left all their names in the email, so
Yeah.
I left all their little names up there. Because I printed all their emails. When I wrote the articles over the summer, I left their wrongdoing to their own words. I clipped their emails and put them in a line and let them tell their own story. So at the Arizona Daily Independent, if you type my name in somewhere, all the articles should pop up.
Google search, yeah.
I just wanted to say I'm very thankful for this Tea Party. The unfortunate thing is that years ago, when I was a teenager, my mother warned me, was reading things that warned that this type of thing was going to be happening, and now it's happening. It's almost like, do we have any choice? Are there any ways of correcting the problems?
She was,
Like you said, it's, the Lord is still in charge.
she was warned by her mother years ago that this was coming, that the government would grow and grow and grow, and programs like this would come out. Do we have any choice? Is it going to overtake us?
No, there's the hopeful news is, especially I have hope when I hook into all these states. There are some fierce anti-Common Core warrior moms, dads, and grandparents out there. You would not believe it. And having Diane Douglas win that, I can't stress this enough, her winning that primary made national news.
Yeah.
They were celebrating. I was getting emails from around the country when I posted the article about it, just saying, yeah, we can do it here. We can defeat this thing. We're going to go after our governor, too. A lot of Republican governors are now taking it seriously. They don't know, because they don't realize the power and the wave and the strength that's coming at them. Bobby Jindal in Louisiana, he was in charge when he let Common Core into his state. He's changed his mind. Mary Fallon in Oklahoma got rid. She was the head of the National Governors Association that helped write these standards. She signed a bill in Oklahoma. The conservative legislature created a comprehensive bill that ripped every single one of those things I told you about out of their state. And now they're going back to their old standards. They're going to create new standards. They banned those data suctioning systems in their state. So governors, brave conservative governors, are coming out against it.
Indiana went through that, and they're in a major turmoil, which is fine. If there's a fight for the right, it's necessary. If it takes a year or two or three to overcome it and finally get the good thing in there, it's worth it.
But let me say Mike Pence, though, one thing about him. He wants to run for governor. He wants to run for president in 2016. And he was one of these governors that I was talking about. They sort of say they're against it because they know it's politically feasible, that they're going to depend on us to get elected. So he signed a bill, a watered-down bill, that left that they rewrote the standards, but he didn't control the process. They had the old bureaucrats in their Department of Education cut and paste the old Common Core standards and put them in, and they're calling them the new Indiana standards. He did a big disservice. That's why they're in turmoil, because the people that got it that far, the anti-Common Core people and the Tea Party crowd were furious at how he did that double take with them. Because there's conservative legislatures across the country fighting this, and then governors vetoing this.
Good inside information.
Two things, continuing on what we were just talking about, since Brewer accepted this, can we get out of it?
Since Brewer accepted this in the money, can we get out of it?
Yeah. That's one of the things they keep trying to scare people with. If we get out of this and we took that money, well, they're going to ask for it back. Well, they've already spent the money.
It's our
How are
money
they getting it
anyway.
back? It's our money. Yeah, I know. It's like arguing with the liberal about that. But they've already spent the money. They can't come after that. They can go after, because we also got I think with Oklahoma, they took away some waivers and stuff they got. The amount of money we got for Common Core, by the way, was $25 million. We asked for I think it was $150 million or something. we kept getting turned down and turned down and turned down. At the end, she got $25 million, the price of a two-story garage, maybe, to sell out our kids. So, you know.
But they did get a lot of grants for that computer system, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, they can take that back.
Yeah.
They can take all that out.
Yeah, okay.
They can take all that
So,
out.
follow up?
The second part is, what about homeschoolers? My daughter-in-law homeschoolers.
What about homeschoolers?
Did they take that away? Are they trying to do that?
That's their goal. You guys, the homeschoolers, are the biggest threat. You're keeping your kids at home. You're not letting them be indoctrinated. You're not letting them be taught by somebody else. You better believe they're going to go after the homeschoolers eventually. What they're doing is they're setting up the structure. If a homeschooler wants to go to college, they're going to have to take the SATs, possibly ACTs, the AP tests, to get college credit. That's all controlled by Bill. It's not Bill Coleman. It's called Bill David Coleman, who was one of the architects of Common Core. He's now the head of the SAT, what is that organization called? College Board. He's the head of the College Board. He's already changing it. And there's also one thing I didn't touch on, because big business, chambers of commerces tend to be for Common Core. Hooray for them. They want access to that data. They can go into your classrooms, test pilot products. If it's only tangentially related to education, they're allowed to get that information. That's part of the FERPA changes. So they want access to that. Also, what I've been hearing a lot of, and this makes sense, the Chambers of Commerce and Big Business would love for the K through 12 system to be their human resources. This is what we need, K through 12. They pump out the kid that can fill the job, like that's a good thing. Why not put a kid into the world that's a free thinker, intelligent, critical thinker, that can do any job you put in front of them? If with that mindset that they're putting forth, the Chambers of Commerce, we would have had kids in schools back during the polio epidemic being groomed to make iron lungs and service iron lungs, rather than producing the kids that would come up with the cure for polio.
And if you grandparents don't think that you aren't part of the data mining, you're very naive. Because you don't think those grandkids talk about grandpa and grandma, and that teacher doesn't interact? Yes, yeah. Go ahead.
I'm curious, you said something about homeschooling, the negative impact it might have on that. I'm aware of charter schools that are out there that, knowing their background, they would be violently opposed to this kind of curriculum. How are they impacted in terms of, do they lose funding if they fail to comply?
How are both private and public charter schools affected?
Well, real quick before the charter schools, one thing more about the homeschooling. There is the possibility that when a kid wants to go get a job, the companies might require a college and career-ready education. And if you're a homeschooler, you're not getting that. That could be another thing. I wouldn't put that past them. That's right up their alley. They would do it. But with, sorry? And military. The other thing about charter schools are public schools. A lot of people think they're private. Even when you say like private charter school, it's not a private. They might contract out private parties to run certain aspects of the administration. They call that private charter schools or for-profit charter schools, as if public schools aren't for-profit with all the money they're making off our kids. But charter schools are definitely impacted because if Common Core is fully in place, there isn't a choice. There isn't a choice. They have to comply. They'll get their funding yanked. Their funding is based on each kid that walks through the door. There's a price tag that the parent chooses the charter school because they're public schools and offering what they want. That's parent choice, and that's antithetical to Common Core. With Common Core in place, the only thing different about having your kid go to a charter school is to go to a different geographical location.
Yes, Kathy, one last comment.
We're required, our governing board, the charter operator, and the principal are required to sign an attestation every single year that we will follow Common Core.
Kathy is the owner of this school, the East Valley High School. She's here tonight.
And if we don't do that and send that paper in, we're in non-compliance with our charter contract, and they can close us down within 30 days.
for those of you that didn't hear that, she and her governing board has to attest every year that they are following Common Core here in this charter school. And if they don't, they can lose their license. So she's doing it. She's living it. She's right inside Common Core. Well, we're at the 8:30 hour. We need to end, but we really appreciate you coming, Brad. This has been fantastic. And there will be, yes, if you could donate in the red buckets, we'll give all of that to Brad for his trip back. His gas alone is probably $50. So, and he's got books out in the lobby. So let's let him get out to the lobby right now. And thank you again, Brad, for coming tonight. We thank you. Trevor Loudon will be here next week, folks.